Yeah, no, I could see that. I just there's something about George Clooney that's weirdly like another one of these iconic movie stars.
Guys,
That I think
I have to use the bathroom. Like there's I like I'll leave this in. I'm about to fucking make a brown little pool in my computer chair. I'll be right back.
Welcome to Please Make This Movie, a show where we take a beloved movie or TV series and create the perfect sequel, prequel, or spinoff. I'm Zach,
I'm Storm.
And I'm Nick.
and as always, you can follow us on Twitter at PMTMPod. There you can vote on any polls we make, or make suggestions for future episodes, or check out some of the artwork that we've made related to our ideas. Today we're talking Pulp Fiction. And I don't know about you guys, but in the spirit of Vincent Vega, I have decided to wear a full suit tonight as we record this episode.
I am definitely not wearing a suit, but
I also am not. But
I'm snorting heroin.
Oh no!
Yeah, woo! Really gets the heart pumping.
So
all right.
I don't want to sound like a real wiener. But like, you definitely don't snort heroin, right? Like that's not a way you take it, is it?
I don't think it's the proper way to take it. No.
I didn't think so. Like, and it seemed like she should have known that, given her lifestyle.
Well, she didn't. Well, if you notice, they prefaced her doing coke in like the girls' bathroom, so she just saw this white powder and thought it was coke.
Yeah, in the scene when he buys the heroin. The drug dealer, Lance, specifically mentions that he's out of balloons and is a baggie, okay, indicating that you would expect to see heroin in a balloon, but cocaine in a baggie.
Oh, I guess I don't know enough about drugs to really get the... I thought
Zach, you
heroin
fucking
was like,
loser.
I thought heroin was like a little slightly tinted color. Maybe not. So let's get into the actual recap of the movie. I told you guys last week when we picked this movie that I had never actually seen it from start to finish in like one sitting. I think after watching it that I've seen the whole movie prior to this viewing, but it had been broken up into parts. And I was telling Nick earlier that like I didn't realize until watching it that it was a non-linear plot. And so that maybe is one of the reasons that I was not a big fan.
Well, like that surprised me because that's like Pulp Fiction's thing. Like that's what it's kind of known for.
Well, when you only see like a couple scenes at a time, you don't really get the timeline of the movie.
I imagine that's double confusing because even watching it straight through the first few times, you kind of have to put it together. But if you just saw it completely out of order, I can see how that would be potentially off-putting even.
No, I can't remember what scene it was where I realized it, but I want to say it was spoilers for Pulp Fiction, I guess. When Vincent Vega died, I was like, I think there's one more scene left that like I so that doesn't make any sense. But yeah, so let's does somebody want to quickly recap the movie? Just kind of touch on the storylines that kind of flow through this movie.
It's Pulp Fiction is about various intersecting storylines set in LA in the crime world in the early 90s. There's a story about two hitmen, Jules and Vince, going on a job assignment that goes wrong, or rather it leads them on an adventure that goes wrong. Then there's a story about Butch the boxer who's supposed to throw a match but doesn't, and then the fallout from that. And then there's a story about Vincent Vega, one of the two hitmen, taking his crime boss's wife out for dinner and how that goes wrong. I think those are the stories.
Yeah. Also, if you haven't seen Pulp Fiction, I don't know why you're listening to this. So.
Yeah, I don't.
That would be a weird thing. So what I know this is a Quentin Tarantino movie, so there's some like director specific things that I feel like are definitely going to carry over. So what do we think we need to include in our Pulp Fiction sequel?
So this was a kind of a tough one for me because there definitely are some director specific things, but with Pulp Fiction, it's early in Tarantino's career where he's still kind of cultivating those iconic trademarks. But the big one is chapters, like the story being divided into chapters. I feel like almost all of his subsequent films are broken up that way, where you actually have a title card with a chapter. And in this movie, there are 3 of them. And then I believe a couple scenes that set them up before we get into the 3 chapters.
Yeah, I'm down with that. That makes sense. I like the chapter titles. I also think the nonlinear plot is super important. Now, I don't think we should necessarily plan like the order of whatever we decide to create the sequel as, but I think we should just like cut, like when we present our plots, like maybe we should like I don't know, just present our like at least that's how I'm doing it, is presenting our like side stories, and then just I don't know, unless it's like important to the plot, like just kind of assume it's going to be edited in an interesting way, because that's just too much to just talk about.
Yeah,
So
mine. Oh, sorry, not to cut you off. Mine is already kind of structured in a way where the chapters flow in a nonlinear way that is specific to the information that you get, kind of leading to the end. But I feel you on if we do like combine and pick pieces from each of them and put them together to make one that we should maybe just talk about the stories as opposed to the way they're structured.
Yeah, I did a thing where I basically did my storylines as linear. Then I did a timeline of the entire movie and then just dropped like bits and pieces throughout.
Nice.
And so like my pitch is not going to be linear, or is going to be linear, but like I have a version of it in my head that is not. And I think with that nonlinear plot, the thing that I noticed with this movie is that there needs to be almost like like an end cap, a storyline for the beginning and the end. You guys know what I'm talking about with like the
diner scene?
Yeah, the diner scene, where there is this clear start and this clear end, and that those characters are really only there as like to make everything function for the movie, to give it a clear start and a clear end. Because everything else happens over such a long time span.
Yeah, kind of like bookends at either end of the timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as like a director specific thing, I think we definitely need to have some sort of foot stuff in the movie.
Yeah, well, does that? So I know that is a Tarantino staple, or eventually becomes one. Is there anything in Pulp Fiction?
There's
I guess
the dance is because they take their shoes off, which I thought was weird.
And then the foot rub conversation.
The whole conversation at the beginning is talking about rubbing feet. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, those are the two big ones that stood out to me as like, this is just his skis, I guess.
Yeah, I mean it is on display way worse in some of his other movies, for sure. Like that is a growing thing. I almost think maybe it was incidental in the early movies, and then people brought it up, and he saw criticism of it, and was like, you know what? If they're gonna come at me for this, then I'm gonna double down on this every time.
Mm-hmm. I could see that.
But kind of jumping off what you just said with that trademark, I think the look of his movies is very specific, and that's kind of a trademark in and of itself. Like if they were to make this movie now, I would imagine they would take great effort to having like the lighting, the specific cameras, the types of lenses, and even like the locations look a really specific way to meet that same aesthetic feel of the original. I don't know how that doesn't really tie into what we do, because we talk about plot, but aesthetically that would need to carry over.
I wrote down on our list, look specific, in parentheses, not something we can recreate.
Yeah. I'll make sure
I agree with you
to talk to my people when we make this, to make sure.
Yeah. And then when we get to casting, I kind of talked to you guys already about this before we started recording. When we get to casting, I feel like Quentin Tarantino brings a lot of the same people around. And so that may be something we want to think about as far as from a casting standpoint as of like who are the usual suspects in Quentin Tarantino movies.
I think
Yeah.
that he
Definitely
does
for
very.
cameos too.
He has like an ensemble, a recurring ensemble of actors, but the way he varies from it is really specific as well. I think he goes for a certain type of like a movie star aesthetic, or someone who maybe has like a lifestyle or a reputation surrounding them that harkens back to like
Yeah.
movie stars of old. So some of my casting choices are not necessarily from the Tarantino recurring ensemble, but they do honor that
Same.
his like casting ideals, I guess.
Storm, there are some just from knowing you that I think we have like the same
For sure.
choice for.
Yeah,
I'm
there's-
pretty sure. Like
there's-
I was picking something. Like, I bet Storm picked
Yeah.
that person.
Yeah, my Butch. I'm really wondering if he ends up being the same guy that you have. If you
I-
have
that's
that
exact-
character.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
That's my backup. I don't want to say. I'll
That's
say.
not
I'll
a
say
bad
the guy
sign.
That's who I have. That's who I have.
because of Looper.
Yeah, because of
For
Looper.
sure.
100% because of Looper.
I mean, I was like, because I remember Storm, you were like, I talked to you about that specifically. So I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I think Storm might pick him.
I went a little bit different just to avoid that Looper connection, but because of that movie, I mean, obviously we could see that. He for sure could do it. But in that movie, he's wearing a lot of
Yeah.
prosthetics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I would want, in my opinion, that should be avoided if possible in something like this.
Yeah.
All right. Before we start getting too deep into our movie without figuring out first what the movie is, let's get into pitches.
Yeah.
Do we want any more things to
Um,
include? Any more requirements? I mean, I think gratuitous violence kind of goes
Yeah,
without saying.
I think violence and some sort of like casual drug use, where it's like not it like the cocaine and the heroin is not like a taboo thing in this movie. It's just like she's just doing blow in the bathroom. He's just carrying around a bag of cocaine, heroin with him. Like
it's just
as
that
he's-
world.
Yeah, yeah.
I do have one other maybe requirement or just something I want to mention before we jump into the pitches. Something that kind of became a Tarantino trademark that really, in my opinion, starts in this movie is the idea of reviving maybe a fallen movie star. Because at the time, John Travolta was not, he wasn't at the top of his game. He was a big actor in the 70s, and then there was a big kind of fall off, and then Pulp Fiction brought him back into the mainstream and made him an A-list actor again, or at least that's what I read on the internet.
Okay, well, Storm, I want you to remember that when we go to casting because I have the perfect choice.
Right on. I have
Also-
a casting choice
Also,
in mind as
it
well.
wasn't Pulp Fiction. It was Scientology that brought him back. So you're wrong.
They cradled him when he was down.
Yeah.
Well, John Travolta's midichlorians or whatever the hell they measure are off the charts now. So
I wish I knew more about Scientology so I
Is
could
it,
make more jokes.
Thetans, I think.
Thetans, I like saying
Yeah.
midichlorians because it's fucking stupid. It's an equally stupid measurement of power.
So who wants to go first?
I can go first.
Go for it.
Okay, so my movie has a couple things I need to explain first before I jump into the actual plot. If this were to be made right now, it would be the 10th film by Quentin Tarantino. So he's frequently stated that he's only going to make 10 movies. So my idea kind of is that this would be, kind of billed as his final film. So I even have that as a subtitle. And then also a lot of his movies have interconnecting threads that kind of suggest that there's this overarching Quentin Tarantino world. And there's even some debate because some of the movies exist in a sub-universe within that universe that is the Quentin Tarantino movie world. And some of those movies are like Kill Bill or Django, or some of the movies he's written that he didn't direct, like From Dusk Till Dawn, which has a huge influence on my movie. But so the rules governing what defines these two universes, the real Tarantino universe and the movie universe, there is some contention online because there is an interconnecting thread in Django Unchained that leads to something that is seen in Kill Bill. It's a gravestone that the bride is buried under, has the same name as one of, or at least the same last name as one of the main characters in Django. So I believe he had kind of said that Django existed in the real world, but Kill Bill exists in this movie world. And so the lines are blurry, and that's important to my whole pitch. So now jumping right into my movie idea. This film is called From L.A. to El Rey, the final film by Quentin Tarantino. And it follows the adventures of several of the characters from the end of Pulp Fiction, Jules, Butch and Fabian, and Honey Bunny and Ringo, as they flee from Los Angeles to a community south of the border called El Rey. El Rey is a secret criminal town that was developed in the movie From Dusk Till Dawn. It's the place that George Clooney's character, Seth Gecko, keeps talking about. If you get to this place and you give them 30% of your loot, they'll give you sanctuary from the law. So all of these characters kind of through their time in the criminal underbelly or the criminal world of Los Angeles, they have heard of this place and they know kind of this is the best bet for any of them is to make their way down there. So my movie is split into 5 different stories, each focusing on one of these groups of characters that eventually leads to a big showdown at this bar in El Rey. The first chapter is called Kane from Kung Fu, or rather, I'm sorry, Like Kane in Kung Fu, which is a reference to a line that Samuel L. Jackson says, or rather, Jules Winfield says in the diner at the end of Pulp Fiction. He says, I'm going to walk the earth like Kane in Kung Fu. So it picks up on Jules. He's hitchhiking in the desert. Maybe it follows him for like a day and a night. He doesn't really look like he's struggling or anything. He's very stoic. And he makes his way to a road where he is picked up by an aging movie star who we find out is Rick Dalton from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, played by, in my opinion, it would be Mickey Rourke. And this is our character that is kind of a revived aged movie star who maybe has fallen from grace. And it's Rick Dalton having gotten tons and tons of plastic surgery over the years after having become washed up. And he has come out into the desert. His plan is he's going to kill himself. We learn this through a conversation that he has with Jules in the car. Eventually, Jules convinces him not to do that, and he's got to go back to Hollywood, and he's got to try to save his reputation. And he lets Jules out, and they part ways. This suddenly leads to the second chapter called The Lost Highway, which is a reference to the David Lynch film Lost Highway. This is about Honey Bunny and Ringo. It's kind of a dark comedy chapter, almost a horror based, where they're trying to make their way to El Rey as well. But through a series of blunders, they end up way off path without a vehicle. They're hitchhiking in the middle of the night, and the chapter ends with a car pulls up to pick them up, and it is Kurt Russell as Stuntman Mike from Death Proof, but way, way, way toned down. So the vehicle he's in doesn't have a big decal on it. He's not dressed like a greaser from the 50s. He's just some guy. But it is very clearly the same guy. So we're blurring this line of what is the movie universe and what is the real world. And are these people about to be killed by some sort of supernatural thing or something? So then we cut to the next chapter, which is set at the bar in the city of El Rey. And it's called What I Saw is Fucking Vampires, which is a line that George Clooney says in the movie From Dusk Till Dawn. And we open kind of on this guy sitting at the bar. He's not played by George Clooney, but he is dressed the exact same way, and he has the same tattoos that George Clooney had in From Dusk Till Dawn. And he's drunk at the bar. He's telling his story about how he's with all these people. They went to this strip club to hide out overnight, and they got attacked by vampires. And everyone, no one's really believing him. They're kind of dismissing him as this crazy bum. And then someone even says, "Hey, you saw that in an episode of the old show Django and Zorro." Which is a reference to a comic book that was made after Django Unchained came out called The Legend of Django and Zorro. And then suddenly we see a quick flashback of a TV show called Django and Zorro. It's like an old 50s show, and it shows them fighting vampires in a similar kind of scene to what the drunken Seth Gecko just said. So it kind of is like, again, is this movie world real? Is this guy crazy? What's going on? What's real and what's not? But we do kind of also establish that at this bar, there are a bunch of other random characters from the Tarantino universe, like Stuntman Mike, some characters from other movies he's written, like Alabama from True Romance. and then also a bunch of mobsters. And it's established that the mobsters know a bunch of money is coming to town. It's Butch's winnings from the boxing match. All right, this is going long, so I'm going to start cutting it down a little bit. But they know someone's coming with a lot of money, and the plan is they're going to confront him in the bar when he gets there, and they're going to try to take all the money. Then I had an idea for a crazy flashback that shows a little, like maybe 5-10 minute scene with Django and Zorro at the same bar, but in the 1870s, in a sequence where they are able to stop a robbery without getting violent by making the robbers think that they have guns hidden on their person when actually they came into the bar unarmed, which sets up our final chapter called From LA to El Rey, in which Butch and Fabian, they leave LA, they go to Tennessee to pick up Butch's winnings from the boxing match, and then they make their way south of the border, and they enter the bar, and then all of a sudden all of our characters are in the bar at the same time. There's Jules, Butch and Fabian, Seth Gecko, Stuntman Mike, Alabama from True Romance, and then all the wise guys who were talking about confronting them for the money. And the notable exception is Ringo and Honey Bunny are not there, implying that at the end of that chapter, when they got picked up by Stuntman Mike, they didn't make it. And then I didn't come up with an ending, but some sort of confrontation happens where maybe it echoes that Django and Zorro chapter, where they are able to end the conflict non-violently, also kind of echoing the ending of the first movie. And that is it.
Alrighty.
That's like really good.
That's a Tarantino magnum opus with all those references to other works.
It is. I like it. I like all that.
Why I came in with kind of it being his final film, or the final film by Quentin Tarantino. So I just tried to connect as many threads as possible. Understanding that he definitely isn't going to make this movie as his final movie, but if he were, it'd probably be there'd be a lot of intercontextuality.
I have none of that in my movie.
Mine's pretty simple too. Yeah, I like Jules wandering through the desert. And actually my setting, well, I don't really have much described in the setting, but my setting was like in Southwest America. Like they moved from LA. So kind of like that's the kind of the dry, dusty, not necessarily Wild West, but just like modern day Southwest, Arizona, bunch of like fake Native American souvenir stores and empty red highways, inspired by a road trip I took with Storm many years ago.
Yes, beautiful. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Do your pitch, since you've kind of teased it a little bit for us already.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Mine's less detailed and a little more open-ended. So let's see here. All right, so I kind of separated mine into like two timelines. So one is immediately after the events that took place in Pulp Fiction, and another one, probably around 6 months, possibly a year later. But those timelines kind of cut in between to kind of amp up the level of the nonlinear plot line, because it's not only like, different stories that happen at different times, but there's a much bigger gap in between the events took place. But not enough to where you see like an age difference or anything like that. So I guess I'll start off with Jules. So he he gives like a pretty clear hint as to what path he can go down. So Jules clearly is just starting off. He's going to be a drifter, but like he's kind of like following the path of God. So eventually, I want Jules to be like a roaming, like traveling preacher, like an old school, like pitch a tent, preach to everybody down in the Southwest. But also sort of like a Robin Hood preacher that kind of like steals from the rich and gives to the poor. Maybe there can be some build up, some sort of conversation that Jules has with Vincent, where he decides to like, hey, I'm, or maybe, I don't know, I don't want him to talk to Vincent about it. But ultimately, I want Vincent or Jules to go back to the strip club that Marcellus Wallace owns and steal the golden suitcase, because I want the golden suitcase to come back. So let's see here. So he goes back to the strip club, steals a golden suitcase, and inevitably hangs out in the Southwest, traveling, hitchhiking through public transportations, maybe, fighting small little injustices on the way. And this is the first timeline immediately afterwards. So he goes like looking for Vince, um, to give him part of the suitcase profits. But of course, by this time, he's actually dead once he actually steals it. Um, and he remembers, he was going to like Mia's place, and he starts asking where Vincent is. She's like kind of strung out, clearly still messed up from the night before. I don't really have my dates super aligned, but I think it works out where he can kind of show up the night afterwards if my timelines are correct. And she mentions that like he was talking about like stopping by Butch's for whatever reason, like this boxer guy, like I don't know, she's still kind of high or like messed up. I mean, she OD'd, and he has to use the phone. He's gonna try to call his place again before he goes over there. She's like laying down on the couch, and maybe she sees like the suitcase that the combination is 666, and she sees that they're matching, and she's like kind of intrigued, and she opens up the suitcase, and like same golden scene, like you don't see anything in there. Um, and you see her kind of fascinated, super strung out, and she kind of takes maybe like little drug pouch that she probably puts weed in, and just takes something out of the suitcase, puts it in the pouch. The pouch is glowing on her like this small little light, and like closes it up. So she kind of takes it and closes up the suitcase, and Jules goes ahead and leaves and finds Vincent's corpse in Butch's house in the toilet.
Oh.
Police haven't showed up, and they weren't like terribly close, but he's kind of on this like religious path now, and I have Jules maybe venging in some sort of badass like prayer to God to like get vengeance on him because he can kind of assume that Butch kind of killed him. Maybe there's some evidence there. I haven't really thought about it there, but he figures out that he figures out that Butch definitely did it, and vows vengeance. So then we have Butch and Fabian. They're just them chilling in like a nice hotel and like maybe like a resort, like a snow resort in Colorado. Nice white cold environment. Just having a good time reflecting on what happened in the past movie. Not much in this beginning timeline. And then Mia, we have her. Kind of she eventually goes back to Lance and Jody's place. And she actually wants to score some more heroin. That was the first time she ever did it. And while she almost died from it. She is trying to score more, and they're like, no, screw you, crazy bitch! Like you tried to die in her house. But then she like opens up her little pouch, and they get kind of memorized, and she's like, I have, I can pay for it. And then she kind of gets into this rabbit hole where she, shoots up again for the first time with them and turns into a junkie. And then, last but not least, for the beginning is Marcellus. He finds out that he gets robbed by Jules. He's pretty pissed, obviously, and he calls the wolf. And whichever order that is. So that's on like the first. Let's see, the first immediate scenes after the end of the first movie. And then I'm just going to go briefly over the 6 months later. I kind of kept it open. So we fast forward 6 months later. Again, doesn't happen linearly. And Jules, he has attained a follower. He's dressed more like a preacher, like real traditional, like dress clothes, maybe like I don't know, some sort of There Will Be Blood type outfit. And he's found a follower, a Spanish man named Gordito, assisting him in his traveling preaching gig. I just kind of thought Javier Bardem could play him. Like it's this like clear,
Nice.
big, burly, tough dude who can like hold his own, but he's just kind of like a hired hand at the moment. But in the end, you kind of realize he's like a badass who can fuck some shit up. The lone wolf is hunting down Jules with some hired goons, maybe some like mafioso type fellas. I want to make it kind of akin to like Kill Bill, the Crazy 88, where it's just like these like bland goons like that, like copy and paste goons that can just get slaughtered by whoever they have to fight in this path. And then we have Mia. She's strung out with Lance and Jody. They get into shenanigans that annoys Marcellus. She wears a pouch around her neck, tells folk it's her good luck charm. I always thought it'd be a decent moment where Marcellus, like maybe towards the end, like a little plot twist where like, I don't know, Marcellus is pissed that she's super strung out and maybe she drops the pouch. He sees the suitcase contents and maybe realizes like, oh, maybe Jules didn't steal it, and like kind of blames his wife, kind of switching up something at the end. I just left that in there for a possibility. And then last but not least, Butch and Fabian are now in like a dirty hotel in Arizona. They blew all their money, and their relationship is contentious. Fabian, like, and so they're like kind of traveling in the Southwest, and Fabian eventually ends up in one of Jules' sermons and kind of learns about Butch's presence, and chaos ensues. Um, which when I think about it, and that's pretty much all I have. But there's a lot of stuff that I can combine with your Storm.
Yeah, there definitely is. There's some cool stuff that would actually flesh it out. I like the stuff with Jules going back to talk to Vincent, or I'm sorry, being the one to discover Vincent's body in Butch's apartment, which then would lead to like tension between Butch and Jules in the showdown at the end.
Oh yeah, yeah, and then like there's, I mean, clearly, like I just have them vaguely in the Southwest. I mean, it could be El Rey. Like, why not? Like, there's no
Yeah.
reason why that can't in there.
Yeah. Also, I like the idea of there being someone with a piece of the contents of the suitcase and that glow, that gold glow coming back, but we still don't see the contents.
Oh yeah, never see it. Never see it still, because that defeats the purpose of the suitcase. Like, it's supposed to be super ambiguous, but yeah, I don't know. I like having that back. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have.
Cool.
Okay. So I uh, really just base mine off of the first like title slide that we see of the movie is the definition of Pulp Fiction, and definition 1 is a soft, moist, shapeless mass of matter, and definition 2 is a magazine or book containing lurid subject matter being printed on rough paper. And so I really ran with the soft, moist, shapeless mass of matter idea because it's just like kind of a story that doesn't necessarily have like a set shape. You don't necessarily see where it's going until it's all done. So here's my storylines. I have a group of burglars. It's going to be 3. I don't have names for them. But basically, the movie starts with them starting outside of a house, talking about stealing something. They're talking about this MacGuffin that they're going to steal in very vague terms, as not to give it away. And then that first opening scene ends with them stumbling into a room with Marcellus Wallace, a bunch of gangsters, and a new character that I'm going to be introducing named Val Vega, and a firefight. Like all guns get drawn, and then we cut to like hard cut to the storyline of Val Vega, who is Vincent Vega's sister, because Vincent Vega, of course, is the brother of Vic Vega from Reservoir Dogs. So I just have this whole family of just kind of rapscallions. And so she too is in a life of crime. She has a partner very similar to like Vince and Jules. And she is driving around at the beginning and she spots Vince's car. And so she goes to kind of check out like, his car's back. I didn't even know he was back from Amsterdam, because we found that out in Pulp Fiction that he had recently returned after, I believe it was 3 years in Europe. So she's kind of pissed off that he never said anything. So she goes to figure out like, what's my brother doing? And she stumbles into Butch's apartment and finds Vincent dead. And she actually calls the wolf to clean up the crime scene, as not to like alert the authorities of anything, because she has kind of vowed to kill Butch, the guy whose apartment it is. And she has to, throughout this storyline, obviously find out who that is. The storyline of Butch is he rides off after getting back with his girlfriend, and they run off, and he's starting over after finding out that Fabian is pregnant. This is going to be important because it's going to come back to the watch that is so precious to him, that was passed down from his father, and I believe his grandfather to his father. And so when they are kind of on the run, he ends up having to kill a bookie that has found them and kind of come after them. And ultimately, Butch gets killed by Val. And in his like dying breath, kind of gives this watch over to his girlfriend, so it is making it to his unborn son. And then we have the story with Marcellus and Mia. I don't really have a lot kind of fleshed out there. Basically, it's just dealing with the OD fallout with Mia and her kind of uh, not really knowing where to go from there. Marcellus, we actually see him killing Zed instead of just torturing him. We obviously are going to see some great torture scenes, and then we have a scene with him talking to Val about Vincent because he's super upset about Vincent because he told him to go after Butch prior to um, the whole meeting between Marcellus and Butch and where everything was forgiven. And so that's why Vincent was waiting at Butch's house. And he's very upset with Vincent because although he doesn't know Vincent has died, he knows that Vincent was responsible for Mia ODing and uh, dying and needing to be brought back to life. And obviously, he gives that information up of, oh, it was Butch and he was on the run, and maybe that connection earlier in the movie with Val and the wolf, she can kind of hit him up for information again. Snap back to the burglars from the beginning. The guns are drawn, a firefight ensues, stray bullets fly all over the place. One of them hits the briefcase, blowing everyone up because it was a bomb in the briefcase. And everyone except Val, who gets up and gets in her car, and the film ends with her getting in her car, and we know she is going to kill Butch. Also, I forgot to add this, Val dies in that firefight as well. So every character in the movie pretty much ends up dying by the end of the film. So there we go. The obligatory foot talk. I got this one in the opening conversation in the car. I don't know why I made a note of this. Val and her partner, who will be very open about her sexuality, will be having a discussion about the difference between women's feet and men's feet and which one is sexier. Because I feel like that captures the uncomfortable element of the foot massage talk. But it's also kind of interesting. So there we have my pitch.
Nice. I like the Butch and Fabian having a baby. I like that watch motivation for him. I think that definitely, no matter what, should be in one of the stories or the final one.
Yeah, the idea of them finding out that they're pregnant and the keeping the lineage of the watch going. That's really strong. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, which would mean maybe if no.
I feel like that detail could really go along with any of the stories. It's just a solid world building thing. I like the idea of the third Vega sibling, Val Vega, as well.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of the suitcase being a bomb.
I didn't either, but I needed a way to end my movie.
It's fun.
And so I thought the suitcase being this Deus Ex Machina that just ends the entire thing would be good enough. I guess it's not clear that it's a bomb. It just gets shot with a bullet and then explodes.
Well, I just keep thinking, what if, it was still a bomb in my movie, but, Mia puts it in her pouch? What, did she have a tiny little bomb? It's uranium. She's fucking getting cancer.
So where do we want to go with this? Because I really like aspects of both of your guys' pitches. I really, really, really like the idea of going to the Elroy. Just because I think that world of From Dusk Till Dawn is interesting. And I think it pairs well, but I don't know how exactly we get there.
So something about that I want to mention that I didn't really mention in my pitch. I was actually streamlining. I wrote 2 pages, and I was trying to edit as I was reading it because I realized it was going for way, way, way too long. But so the characters in Reservoir Dogs, all of the guys, then Jules and Vincent, and then Richie and Seth Gecko in From Dusk Till Dawn, they are all dressed in the same suit. So I kind of think they're all part of, it's this brotherhood almost. If you're in, you're in. And all the people that are in know about El Rey. There's this common thread. amongst this thief or hitman world. If you're at a certain caliber, you wear the suit. Um, and so there's, I guess that would be the connecting thread from the From Dusk Till Dawn world, and maybe even the vampire stuff didn't happen, but Seth is crazy from something that did happen to him.
All right. Well, I like the idea. All right, so like maybe like a lot of the intro stuff from my plot, but like the main conflict stuff from with El Rey and a lot of the references with Storms. And I like one, the of course the Butch baby watch subplot from your Zach, and then also including uh, the Vincent Vega's sister Val. It was right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Like it may be like because Jules, like I mean, we could even if like Jules finds the body, if we choose to include that, like Val can come in and get it cleaned up. I don't know, that gets a little bit fucky for lack of a better word, but I want Val in there for sure.
yeah. I think having Val discover the body, as much as I do like Jules discovering that body and then him having that, I think he should know about it. But maybe he finds out in the confrontation at the end. Val's there. She's the one who discovered the body, but she confronts Butch, and it's like, you killed my brother. And Jules, who's maybe trying to be the peacekeeper in the whole situation, suddenly snaps a little bit, and old him creeps back in because now Butch has killed this guy that maybe they weren't best friends, but they did go through that significant experience together, so they had a strong bond and enough to elicit an emotional reaction from him.
All right, yeah, like maybe later on he figures out.
Yeah, like I think in the final confrontation in El Rey, maybe Jules is the one who's keeping the peace as much as he can. He's trying to not get these guys to kill Butch and take his money. And everyone has reasons to want to kill one another. Jules is at first being the peacekeeper until he finds out that Butch is responsible for Vincent's death, and then it causes him to waver a little bit and creates some tension on our conflict.
Nice.
So
And I didn't necessarily want mine to end in violence, but that is the Tarantino move.
So I think an interesting way that we could go about this is the Jules kind of walking the lonely walk on the highway is our opening scene, and then that could also be our closing scene. And we find out
Cool.
in that closing scene, in the opening scene, it's not super clear when exactly that walking is happening, and in the closing scene we could reveal something. Maybe it's that he has Butch's watch or something, that like that the events of the movie have actually already happened. And so it's how does that make sense? Does that work? Because that gives us an end cap with a beginning and an end that Jules actually we start by maybe him thinking the idea that he's kind of turned over a new leaf and he's going to kind of be this road preacher, and we find out that in the end, like you can do all this stuff, but you can't really change the man, sort of thing. And he is just back at it.
So I like that idea a lot. Let me ask you guys a question. Do you like the idea of Jules in the opening chapter being picked up? He gets a car pulls up and picks him up, and it's Rick Dalton, the aged actor. Because if so, I think there could be stuff in that conversation where he's saying like, all I wanted was revenge, or I took this thing and it really doesn't mean anything, and he's alluding to the watch, but we don't know exactly what's going on. And at the end of the movie, it turns out that first chapter actually happened after the end of the movie.
And we could even play that up with not being clear if he's talking about the watch or if he's talking about the briefcase.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Because we would be talking about it's really important. It's really important to this guy, but yeah.
So who has the watch again at this point? I'm sorry.
It sounds
Jules would already have Butch's watch because he basically would have. Like, he kills Butch, and then maybe he has still, because he's like a good guy, he's going to take it and make sure it reaches. He's going to do the Christopher Walken basically and deliver it to the son at some point.
What if so in the bar, maybe so Butch's story, I love the idea of Fabian being pregnant. He goes to the bar by himself and tells her to hang back so she gets away. But something that Butch does in the confrontation leads to him getting killed, likely by Jules. And so then Jules takes the watch. how would he know this backstory, Butch's backstory, like about the lineage of the watch and getting it to his son?
Oh yeah.
Would Butch tell him, or maybe he says something to the whole room during that final
I think it could
confrontation? Where
be
he's,
so Jules could pull his gun on Butch when he finds out that he's the one responsible for killing Vincent, and in kind of Butch's dying breath, he makes sure that this watch is taken care of, because like he understands that maybe he isn't great for his son's life, because I mean Butch is kind of an asshole. But like the thing he can kind of leave behind is that memory.
okay,
And that would maybe make sense then why Jules takes it to have this duty to um, give it back.
yeah. So like he's not necessarily maybe he's kind of like Obi-Wan Kenobi style, looking out for this family in the distance while continuing to be this evolved version of his character.
Okay, so real quick, so we're not having Jules want to kill Butch then?
I think Jules does kill Butch.
I think yes, I think he does, but I think he also has remorse after doing it.
All right.
He's no longer the the bringer of death. He is more
I like the idea of him like saying like a similar prayer or even the exact same prayer with like a wounded, defeated Butch, but Butch is like telling him to shut the fuck up and then tells him like the watch story. That's all I'm trying to do. So carry on the memory of my father and his father, like blah blah blah.
Yeah. I like that a lot. What if? So what? I think Butch getting attacked. There's this vengeance angle, but also I love in my pitch. There was the idea Butch has a ton of money. Butch is making this bet in Tennessee over the phone in Pulp Fiction, where he tells the guys like, the next time I see you, I'll be on Tennessee time. And he has bet on himself to win the match that he was supposed to lose. So he has tipped the scales in his favor, which maybe he got out of this situation in LA with Marcellus and they're cool. But everybody else who just lost money, who's involved in the crime world, is coming after him for having rigged this bet. So there's these guys waiting for him that they want the money. Jules doesn't care about the money. He wants the watch. It's personal. But there are these guys that are causing the firefight to happen because they want to get that money back.
Yeah, and it could be those guys are at the El Rey where Butch goes into, and they, in the midst of Butch trying to talk himself out of it, he says, "I killed this guy. I've already been through so much." And when he explains, like, "Oh, he killed this guy that was at my apartment. Like, I made it here. Like, my girlfriend's pregnant. Like, all this stuff." That's where we just have like a shot out of the group, and it is Jules who has been trying to talk them down because he's revealed that he's killed Vincent.
Yeah, I dig it.
Nice.
There were some other things. Do you guys like the idea of Seth Gecko from Dusk Till Dawn being like a drunken buffoon at the bar?
I'm down with that.
Okay, because depending on how we cast this, we could have a lot of people reprising their roles, but if it's set right afterwards, I do like the idea of recasting everyone. And it's hard to come up with a George Clooney type, but I like the idea that him being a different actor and maybe even a completely different type of actor, but just having the same suit and the same tattoos, it's the same guy, but you're like, was the George Clooney version a fictionalized version of this real guy?
Yeah, it's got to be some real schlub, and he in his head is George Clooney,
like superimposed on like a out of shape body.
I don't want to like throw anybody under the bus, but like the immediate person that comes to mind is like Clark Duke, somebody who's not like a striking leading man, but like has that confidence.
Yeah, I have a recast idea for Seth that it deals with someone's like personal reputation, but I don't want to go into casting just yet.
Yeah. All right. So what do we need to figure out? All right. So are we including like Mia in this at all? Like we're like maybe we should follow the characters.
I like
the story.
Nick, I liked your idea about Mia going back to Jody and Lance. And I do want to I think that one of the stories in mine, the flashback to Django and Zorro, is too much, and we should omit that. Maybe the part where there's the flash or the TV show, the 1950s version that shows the vampires, but just that, because that kind of fits into Tarantino's kind of throwback grindhouse style. But I didn't have Mia at all in my pitch, and I like omitting that Django and Zorro shit to have this Mia drug addiction plot.
Yeah, and then like just to not make it like useless, I kind of wanted to have that gold glow pouch reveal to Marcellus Wallace.
Yeah.
So I think the way we could incorporate that is we do have the scene where Mia is alone, kind of with the briefcase, and just sees the password, opens it up, he gets that glow, takes some of it, and then Marcellus is traveling to El Rey for some other reason, and kind of along the way, that pouch falls open, and he realizes like what's going on here.
What if Marcellus is going to get Jules back? He doesn't want to lose him. He's too important of a piece of his organization, and he knows he's heading there. So he's left to convince him to come back. So it's kind of on a peacekeeping mission.
I like that because Vince instead he doesn't have any hitmen with him. So
and if Val Vega is a part of our story, then maybe he's going there to try to broker peace between those parties because he doesn't know who knows what and who's maybe going to kill who. He made peace with Butch, but these other people are going to be out for vengeance.
Yeah. No, that sounds pretty dang good. So I think it's good we like cover like the characters. Who else are we missing that we want to include? I mean, Zach and I both mentioned the wolf. Do we want to include him? How do we want?
I like the wolf being the one who's called whoever. If Val Vega has her setup chapter where she discovers Vincent's body in Butch's apartment, then she calls the wolf. Is the wolf going to be Harvey Keitel but really old?
Well, I wouldn't do that because it's immediately afterwards, and it would just be super weird.
Yeah, he's iconic though, man.
I know it was really hard to replace him, but I got I don't know, I think I have a decent replacement. But
okay, so do we have a completed story right now?
Do we need an ending? Don't we?
Well, the ending is, Jules finds out that through some escalation of conversation that Butch killed Vincent. So all of a sudden he is no longer trying to keep everybody from killing each other. He's like, I challenge him. I'm gonna maybe they have a duel. He kills him. And then he takes the watch. He pays off the bad guys, the wise guys, by giving him Butch's money, or maybe some of it. He makes a deal so he can give the money to Fabian and the kid long distance. Maybe he brokers peace with Marcellus and tells Marcellus to get the.
Sorry, does he also have the briefcase? Because that could be something he.
Oh shit.
He hands over his, I don't know if we're.
Yeah, wait. So Jules. So you know what he does make a big deal at the end of Pulp Fiction about getting that briefcase turned in, and then he's going to tell Marcellus when he turns it in that he's leaving.
True.
So I don't think him stealing it necessarily lines up.
Okay.
So to incorporate Val Vega, since we don't know anything about her, she could be the one that steals it, and that could be the driving force of how she enters the plot. Of she stole this briefcase as basically payment for her. I can't think of the word I'm thinking of, but as like payment for the death of her brother, because like he took something valuable from her, she's going to take something valuable from him, sort of thing. And she has taken this briefcase to El Rey to try to flip it and sell it.
Nice. I like that. One of the through lines with El Rey, the way George Clooney sets it up in From Dusk Till Dawn, is that whatever you come in with, they know. They're like they're big enough criminals that they know what crimes you've committed, who you've stolen from, and you have to surrender 30% in order to get sanctuary there. So everybody has to have something. So maybe part of it is how do you split up the contents of the briefcase, and that's how we could get the piece taken off and put in someone's pocket or something like that. Although I do still like the idea of Mia having a piece of it.
not
Yeah.
really sure about that. I think for purposes of the briefcase, we don't want to
Well,
do enough to explain what it could possibly be, but yeah, we need to have some way of
Yeah.
splitting it.
Yeah, I will. If you just see the light from it, and don't really show what's in it.
It could be we see the light from it, and then we have like that's when Butch enters, and so they quickly snap it shut um, because he's an outsider from this group, so they don't want him to know what's going on.
Totally, yeah, and well, maybe
And
like
it's just kind
people
of resolved.
The tension in the bar before Butch gets there is because people are expecting him to get there. His crime or him coming in with this money that he won in this bet is kind of infamous amongst the criminals.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot. There's a lot of balls in the air on this one. It's hard to think about it, but that would be kind of how I feel like a movie like this, based on his last 3 movies, Django Unchained, Hateful Eight, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Those movies are 3 hours. The long version of Hateful Eight that's on Netflix, the like miniseries version, it's like 4.5 hours long. So
yeah,
something
right.
like this, if this was going to be his magnum opus, it's going to be a long, long movie with a lot of threads going on.
Mm-hmm. All right, so do we have a completed movie at this point? I think we do.
Honestly,
so.
We have enough. I don't know if there's probably some holes in
we
there.
have an obvious end. We have an obvious beginning. We have an obvious end. We've got some stuff in between. What do we want to leave? Like the final scene? Is it's the reveal of the watch? Should there be any like? What is going to be our clear indicator that Jules has not turned over a new? Or is it that he has, and the watch is actually the piece that has forced that change?
I'm not sure exactly how we would show that. I'm kind of imagining, the situation in the bar just played out. Jules is getting ready to leave again, and maybe he sees Fabian at a distance doing something that is inherently kind of a little bit more good than most of the people in this community. Maybe like reaching out to somebody who's in need, or like offering food to a homeless person or something, and he just gives like a little look, puts the watch on, and then he walks off into the desert.
I like him saying like a less vengeful prayer at the end.
Yeah.
Like maybe something like hopeful, or I mean, I don't know anything about the Bible, but I don't know. It's just something that's not just like I will strike great vengeance upon thee. Like he's just like peace and love, and then walks off.
Yeah.
I think that works. So I guess at this point, let's get into casting. We've kind of talked about it throughout, but I don't think we've nailed down any one person.
No.
So did everybody come into this with the idea of recasting the majority of the movie just because of how much time has passed from the original?
Oh yeah, that'd be ridiculous.
Okay.
Yeah, I recast everybody.
All right, so let's just kind of run down the list, I guess, and we'll figure that out as we go.
Butch?
So I had Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Nice.
Okay, yeah, let's do every characters at a time. So yeah, Butch, okay. I had Joseph Gordon-Levitt as well.
Right on. I had John Bernthal, the actor who played the Punisher. I think he gives off some real tough guy, Bruce Willis, John McClane type vibes.
I chose John Bernthal for my Wolf option, but
nice. Cool.
Well, as he's one of my
he's definitely in the movie.
Yeah, he's definitely in the movie. But I wouldn't. I actually like him as Butch as well. Because I have another option for the Wolf. So
yeah, I like the Joseph Gordon-Levitt option, but the Looper connection makes me hesitant.
Yeah, I like John Bernthal there. Actually,
yeah.
I think he also has that energy of just like yelling at his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And like you still don't think he's a complete piece of shit because of it. But yeah, let's get into the Wolf then. Because Nick, you said you had John Bernthal for that.
Yeah, well, I had a second choice that I actually liked better, and it's Leonardo DiCaprio.
That's awesome.
I think he's like older now, and he
Uh,
can kind of do that slick, like
yeah.
um, you know, dressed up mafioso kind of dude. He's got he doesn't talk exactly like Harvey Keitel, but if you think of him in The Departed, but maybe less Boston accent, but more of just some city tough guy. I don't know. I think he'd do well in that role.
That's cool. I could see it.
I originally had Harvey Keitel just reprising the role, um, but I could definitely I can't necessarily see them in it, but I could see the role going to either uh, Christoph Waltz or Steve Buscemi because they're just
Whoa.
kind of um,
I
pretty
thought about Christoph Waltz
typical.
as well.
I
There's a
feel like he
line.
needs to make his way into the movie somehow, and I don't know where he comes in.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's a line in the movie Pulp Fiction where one of either Jules or Vincent, they say something about the wolf after they have their first interaction with him, and they say like, "Oh, I thought he would have been European or something." So this idea that his appearance in this movie is Christoph Waltz, even if he's doing an American accent, is a fun homage to that line.
I like that.
Storm, you did not have the wolf in yours.
I didn't.
Correct?
I
Okay.
kind of have some people in mind, but I like the DiCaprio. I for some reason I thought of John Stamos. But that's absurd. But that is what came, I guess, naturally.
I feel like we should just have John Stamos someplace.
Yeah.
It's just one of the toughs in the bar.
Oddly enough,
John Stamos. It's actually John Stamos. Like it's not a character. It is John Stamos.
oddly enough, I casted Jules as Bob Saget.
Oh, it works.
Full
So
House
it's-
reunion.
So we only need to bring in. Hold on a second while I search up Full House cast.
My Mia gets played as both the twins swapping out as adults.
What? The Olsen twins?
Yeah, the Olsen
What,
twins.
doing equal time so as to not violate
yeah,
child
like
labor
they're
law.
little kids.
Yeah, and then Marcellus will be Dave Coulier.
Jesse, is that Jesse?
No, that's Joey.
Yeah, it's Joey, Uncle Joey.
Oh yeah, Jesse is John Stamos.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
we just completely whitewash all the characters with the Full House.
Oh boy.
I think we have to rewrite our story, guys. Let's just undo.
All right, so I'll go ahead and talk about Val Vega
Cool.
because I'm sure that I'm probably the only person that cast this. I put Margaret Qualley from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood
Cool.
in that role. I also had Tessa
does she
Thompson down. She is in. She's like one of the people who tries to murder him.
Yeah,
She's the one who gets in the car with Brad
She's like
Pitt.
one of the hippies.
Yes.
Yeah, she's the one that Brad Pitt's super into. Yeah.
Nice.
But I imagined her with obviously not a hippie look, more of like a slicked back hair in a power suit type.
I can see it.
I also really like Tessa Thompson somehow getting into this movie, but I don't know where. I had her as Val's partner. I think it'd be cool for her just to be Val, but I don't know if that would require some weird explanation because she's just not white. But I think she would also play the part of a hitman well.
I don't know who that is.
She is in. Did you see Thor Ragnarok?
Is she Valkyrie?
Yes, she's Valkyrie.
Okay.
Yeah, I could see that. I had an idea when you were talking about the character. It's a little bit older than both choices you mentioned. The actress Aya Cash, who played Stormfront on the second season of The Boys, I think has a similar resemblance. But I really dig your choices as well, and it sounds like you have a younger person in mind.
So what about we talked about Butch, the Wolf, Val. Let's talk about Jules.
Yeah, Jules was hard. I have it was okay. So Jules is hard because Samuel L. Jackson is like 46 years old in that movie, and so it's a weird age range to find someone as iconic. So I cast someone who's way younger and has a different vibe. But it's Lakeith Stanfield. He played.
really like him.
He played Cassius Green in Sorry to Bother You, and in that movie he kind of has a similar look even. But he's been in a bunch of movies. Get Out. He was in Atlanta. He was in Death Note on Netflix. I like him a lot. I think that's my choice.
Okay, I had two choices, and one's more serious than the other one.
Okay.
I had the height doesn't match, but I feel like the vibe does. Donald Glover,
Yeah,
Nice.
that's a good one.
Childish Gambino, like
Yeah.
I think he can bring that like Samuel Jackson presence that's kind of hard to match because like he's one of the hardest people to replace.
Oh yeah.
Because he just brings the Samuel Jackson vibe, which doesn't
Mm.
exist anywhere else. But then we were talking about bringing back, fallen actors and actresses.
Yeah.
I thought maybe Jussie Smollett could use
Oh my
some
goodness.
picking up.
Is that a serious suggestion? Do you
I mean,
on his work?
I honestly haven't seen him in anything aside from the news.
He's
So
the only movie I know him from is The Mighty Ducks, the original one. There's twins that are on The Mighty Ducks, and he's one of the two twins. But that he's a little kid in that. So I don't know
Yeah.
I don't know what he's about now.
I just know he maybe could look the part possibly, but I have no idea what kind of actor he is.
So
So-
I didn't have anyone in mind. I completely full disclosure, I wrote my pitch when I still had 10 minutes left in the movie, so I thought Samuel L. Jackson died. So I wrote him out of my pitch. But I think John David Washington
Nice.
would be a good. I feel like he is as close as we have right now to a Samuel L. Jackson. He's more of a leading man. But as far as that cool factor that Donald Glover would bring to the role, I think John David Washington could do that as well.
Yeah, it's hard because all these people we suggested are pretty handsome, and Samuel L. Jackson, not to knock him, he's a powerhouse, he's an icon. But he has like a dog face, kind of. That I don't mean that in like an overly negative way, but he's got a mad dog grin. Is not the most handsome dude ever. So it's really hard.
Hard disagree. I think he's a very handsome man.
Yeah.
I mean, not traditionally handsome, but to each their own. He is a famous movie star.
I would argue that power is a handsome quality.
Yeah.
Totally.
Who we going with for Jules?
I honestly think we can't go wrong with any of the people that
it's tough.
most of the people we threw out there. I think one of them we should steer clear of.
Yeah, Donald Glover, Jussie Smollett, though, and
If we're being realistic, like if with name recognition, I feel like Donald Glover now he has this expectation that he can do impressions of these black characters that have this like crazy iconography to them with his impression of Billy D. Williams in Solo, where it very much he was doing a character. He was acting like another actor. So I could totally see him taking on the role of Jules to kind of do that same thing of like, hey, I did Billy D. Williams. Now I'm going to do Samuel L. Jackson. And in my opinion, he was the best part of Solo. So I could see him kind of coming out of left field.
yeah, and also with Donald Glover. I don't know if you guys ever seen Derek Comedy, like the old school sketch show. He screams a lot in that, and if he just lowers his voice a little bit, he can pull off that Samuel L. Jackson motherfucker yell.
Yeah,
totally.
So what about Marcellus?
I think I have a good choice for that.
I have.
Go ahead, Storm.
I have Yaha Abdul Mateen Yaha Abdul Mateen II. He was in the Trial of the Chicago 7. He was in Watchmen as Cal. Spoilers, as Dr. Manhattan. And then he was Black Manta in Aquaman. I think he's got a similar shape, a similar humongous like frame. So Marcellus, you don't see him. You see him a lot silhouetted, or you see his whole body, and he's just this powerhouse of a dude. And Yaha he's a huge guy. So that's mainly why I cast him.
So I kind of went with a similar way of getting to my just somebody that exudes like tough guy. Chad L. Coleman. He is in The Wire and The Walking Dead. He played Tyrese. He's never been like a leading man type in anything, but
Yeah,
he
that's a good choice.
definitely has like that like
Yeah.
head of the mob uh, look to him.
The
Yeah. This guy's
boxer. Yeah, he was the
awesome.
one who opened up the boxing gym in The Wire.
Yeah.
Um, I like.
Yeah. He's got comedy chops too. He's on Always Sunny.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like him. I have. Well, one. My first thought was Gucci Mane. I like because of his Spring Breakers role. I was like, I feel like he,
Okay.
if he really worked on it, maybe he could pull it off. But then,
That was the old Gucci Mane. He's been
really,
reformed.
oh yeah, he's skinnier now.
And he's
Oh
very
damn!
clean.
All
Yeah.
right. So my real choice was Mike Coulter from Luke Cage. Yeah, I thought
Oh,
I
awesome.
liked him as a you know, he's like tough guy, similar build. If he like shaved his head, maybe he could pull it off. But
He's got the
oh yeah,
voice.
and like you know, he's got him being bald, like not a exact match, but it's kind of hard to match Ving Rhames.
Yeah. Nick, your choice of Mike Coulter is really similar to my choice, Yaha Abdul Mateen. They are. I've actually, I think, mixed them up before. So they're similar age range, very similar build, voice. I think again, like the problem is they're like really handsome dudes, where Ving Rhames looks like so he looks like scary. He looks like a guy you wouldn't want to mess with. But again, it could be part of the act. But I like
Yeah,
Chad
I think we should go
Coleman
with that.
quite a bit.
So what about Mia Wallace?
I have so I have a double cast because in my pitch I had Honey Bunny and Ringo as well, and then Mia Wallace just kind of as a little cameo. But I like Maya
That's
Hawke,
exactly
Uma
who I
Thurman's
chose
daughter.
because she was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She's literally Uma Thurman's daughter, like similar age range, probably.
She might be a little young right now, but who knows when they would even make this? And
I think I checked. I think she's like 23, and Uma Thurman was like 24. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure on that, but
cool. I like I like that choice.
I don't have a good one here. I struggled with this one because everybody that I kept pulling seemed very similar age range to Uma Thurman. So I was like, why don't I just keep Uma Thurman? I had Diane Kruger, but she wasn't even my first choice. I ended up moving her. Maybe it was Margot Robbie at one point. I don't know. I like your guys' choice way better. I did not like my choice for Mia Wallace.
Well, I mean, I like some of the I like Margot Robbie maybe being in it, or even I mean Diane Kruger is great. So if there is a role that and she's worked, both of them have worked with Tarantino in the past, so having them come back up would totally make sense. But yeah, I think Maya Hawke is just like
I think that's
like the obvious.
We can't go a different way with that one.
Yeah,
I think that one's too good to pass up. How about I keep saying Butch's girlfriend because I can never remember her name.
Fabian.
All right, I think I have a good. I think I came up with a good one here. Do you guys know who Ana de Armas is?
Yeah,
that's who I think. Like she seems very similar as far as like from a meek standpoint, but like very very lovable and like you can immediately connect with her type of way.
She's a real similar look as well. Nick, she was in did you see Blade Runner 2049? She is his Officer K's virtual girlfriend.
Okay. Yeah.
Or in have you seen Knives Out?
Yeah.
He's the lead actress in Knives Out.
Is Knives Out good, you guys?
I enjoyed it. I watched it recently, and it was fun.
Cool. It's been on my radar for a long time, but I just haven't checked it out yet.
Enough from our sponsor, Knives Out, which came out a few years ago.
Is that everybody?
I have a couple additional ones just because of the extra characters I have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Lance. Oh yeah, Lance and Jody. So Lance actually could be one of my guys because we kind of cut them out of my pitch or of the final version of Ringo and Honey Bunny. But I like my guy, and it's Robert Pattinson. I think he could be a good Lance, and this is based on his role in the movie Good Time which came out a few years ago, where he just plays this total scuzzbag dude. I don't know. I think he gives those vibes, being one of these kind of low life
All right.
criminal
I
types.
I had Jared Leto.
Yeah,
Nice. I could
I like that one
absolutely
too.
see that. I just don't
I
like
like
Jared
that one
Leto.
too. I don't. He's way too method. So just for sake of peace on set,
Yeah.
I think maybe we should avoid him.
Yeah, I don't
Or we
like. Yeah, I
should.
don't like the dude Jared Leto at all. I recognize
Yeah.
for sure he's an amazing actor, but that guy's got
Okay.
weird vibes.
Or maybe
But
we
he
could
would
just
he would
have
totally be
Jared
someone
Leto.
that would be cast.
We could have Jared Leto be cast, let him really think that Lance is an integral piece of this movie, and then when he sees the recut, he has been like
My-
3 minutes of the film.
My second option was
Ooh.
James Franco because of his fucking Pineapple Express role.
Dude, I genuinely like that choice a lot. Because of that, you would automatically think of that association, but I bet he. I don't think he's the best actor in the world, but he clearly is very, 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 very committed to roles. So I think he would try to make it as far away from Saul Silver as
Yeah.
possible. So you'd get something kind of special. I like that choice a lot.
All right. I mean, Robert Pattinson also works.
I like Robert Pattinson a lot, and it seems like since Twilight, he has just chosen awesome movies to be in.
Yeah. Oh,
So
absolutely.
I think we get that
If
Pattinson bump.
if we're going Robert Pattinson, then I think Jodie should be Kristen Stewart.
Perfect.
Like
Done.
that.
I think she looks pretty similar to the original. And then okay, so the one I want to mention is I have Seth Gecko as this washed up dude, this drunk guy at this bar. He still looks exactly like he's dressed in the same suit that George Clooney was. He's got the tattoos that come up over his neck, but I want him to be a totally different type of guy. I have Shia LaBeouf as this drunken guy in this bar. Where it's like you're going like, wasn't this George Clooney in the original movie? Who the hell is this? This is a totally different type of guy, but I feel like we would really believe him as this like wino with this weird trauma where you don't know if he's just crazy and is making up these tales or if he really did see some shit. Kind of like I imagine he would be talking in the way that guy in the movie Jaws when he tells that story about his ship having gone down in the South Pacific and they all got they all got
where
ate
he's
by
just got
sharks.
dead eyes the entire
Yeah.
time he's telling it, and you're
That's
like,
how I imagine
it
this
seems
story
like
of the
this is
vampires is being
real.
told.
At the very least, he really believes that it happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so for that reason, I feel like Shia LaBeouf could kind of deliver something like that, where it's like, what the hell is going on here? Like something that feels almost uncomfortable to be watching.
I like that casting a lot. I have to admit, when you started talking, I was very, very dug in on Clark Duke after just thinking about it more. But I think for sake of it actually being good,
Are there any people that like genuinely, like nowadays, that you guys could think of who would genuinely pull off like a George Clooney vibe, but like 20 years younger?
Dave Franco?
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah, no, I could see that. I just there's something about George Clooney that's weirdly like another one of these iconic movie stars.
Guys.
I think
I have to use the bathroom. Like there's I'll leave this in. I'm about to fucking make a brown little pool in my computer chair. I'll be right back.
Oh no. Well, I think we're at the point where we can kind of wrap it up. I had some additional characters that were like I had the flashback to Django and Zorro, but those would obviously be played by Jamie Foxx and Antonio Banderas if they did exist in the movie. And then any recurring Tarantino characters like Stuntman Mike would be Kurt Russell. I had a character from a kind of obscure movie called True Romance that Quentin Tarantino wrote but didn't direct. The character Alabama, played by Patricia Arquette, who they're way older, but I feel like at this point these would just be minor characters that exist in this bar in El Rey, and so their contribution is purely cameo, nostalgia based. We don't have to go realistic. Just have the original person.
So do we think that we would put a Quentin Tarantino cameo into this movie somehow? Would he just be one of the barflies?
So I actually, if in Death Proof, he plays a barkeep or a bartender. I forget the character's name, but it's this really kind of animated, cartoony character. I almost think that could be the bartender at the bar in El Rey, further adding to this intercontextuality within his shared universe.
Yeah, I think that works, and I think it makes it so he is in the movie, doesn't necessarily give him a role that is super pivotal.
Yeah, unless we want to have Jimmy from Pulp Fiction show up again.
I was trying to shoehorn Jimmy somehow into my pitch, but I just couldn't make it. Like, I could not understand how he would. I think in my scene where Val was at Marcellus Wallace's house, Jimmy was going to be there, complaining about something that wasn't done right.
Guys.
Cleanup or like his
mostly
farm
farts
or something.
We're good.
Okay. I do. So I never thought Jimmy in the first movie. He kind of seemed like this guy that was loosely connected, almost like he just was like a money launderer or something like that. Like he wouldn't really be the guy to talk to Marcellus. He's barely connected to like Jules. And when he talks to the wolf, he's really like kind of meek. But that makes it way hilarious if we were to have a scene where he's all of a sudden talking directly to Marcellus himself, and he's like fully confident because he's experienced this crazy situation. Now he thinks like, I'm the man, I can start demanding stuff. That could definitely lead for a fun interaction between him and Marcellus.
I think just Tarantino as the barkeep. I think that also I think that also gives him the ability to like direct the story within the movie. And so we have some levels now that we're working with of like, oh, that's the director who's like controlling this conversation. And then people think we're smart and we did it on purpose.
I like that. That feels like a Quentin Tarantino thing to do. I do want to drop in this little bit of trivia in case anybody listening doesn't know. When they originally were making Pulp Fiction, Quentin Tarantino cast himself as Lance, and then he didn't have anyone cast as Jimmy. And I think he approached Eric Stoltz, who ends up playing Lance. Nobody wanted to take that role, and I think we all know why. There's some dicey dialogue that character says. So Quentin Tarantino, in order to alleviate an actor from having to be in that situation, he took that role, and then he had another guy play Lance. I think he's quoted as saying he wanted to be on the other side of the camera during the adrenaline shot scene. I always thought that was a fun bit of trivia.
So let's get to naming the movie.
I really like my title, LA to El Rey, or From LA to El Rey, but I'm totally open to alternate titles.
I mean, I like that title. I mean,
I didn't have
are we gonna do a Pulp Fiction 2 from LA to El Rey?
I think it could just be Pulp Fiction from LA to. I don't think we needed two. Mostly because I don't want to get in the groove of always putting a 2 in our sequels. But I don't think it could just be Pulp Fiction from LA to El Rey.
What about From LA to El Rey, a Pulp Fiction by Quentin Tarantino? I don't know. I'm just trying to I mean, either way, as long as it's in there. I feel like he wouldn't name it as straightforward as like Pulp Fiction then subtitle. He'd have some sort of weird little like filmic twist.
Yeah, I think we could, if we are coming up with this movie as it is Quentin Tarantino's final film, From LA to El Rey, a Quentin Tarantino Pulp Fiction. I think that pays homage to the director nicely.
Yeah, he does that on a lot of his movies. Like I think lately he's been doing them in the numbers, like the 8th, the 9th film by Quentin Tarantino, or a Quentin Tarantino film, kind of like how Spike Lee does a Spike Lee joint.
Yeah, my title that I just very quickly wrote down because I knew I wasn't going to have the best one was Pulp Fiction, Extra Pulp.
Oh God, you would never name it that.
No, I knew it was not good, but I was like, I need to have a title for when we come to the title part. So I think that does it. That does it for From LA to El Rey, a Quentin Tarantino Pulp Fiction. Thanks for listening, and as always, please make this movie.
Ryan Johnson, please make this movie.
Please make this movie.
that messed up so many levels.